Hi everyone. In this video, we will be going over Shared Learning Software Engineering Fundamentals, Chapter 1, Part 2, Putting Together a Local Environment. So what we're going to start off with today is we're going to get our project template set up for a web app. So we are going to open Visual Studio, create a new project. We're going to be building using a Blazor Web App, just the starting template here. So if you select this, we'll be going more into Blazor, but Blazor is .NET's kind of flagship framework that they continuously are updating, and is kind of their newer framework that they have been developing. So it's exciting and does some really cool stuff, and we'll get into that in later episodes. We're going to call this FLP, and this is going to be for the love of plants. We're just going to break that into FLP. Do next. So we're going to make sure the framework is .NET 8. Authentication type for the time being is none. Interactive render mode is going to be auto. And we're going to have per page and component interactivity, and just to show some of these drop downs. So we're going to do auto. And this will allow us to do server side and WebAssembly rendering for this web app. We're going to unselect include sample pages, so none of these should be selected, and we are going to hit create. Okay, while that's creating, we are going to open up our Azure DevOps organization here. I would bookmark this just so you have an easy way to get to it. I believe I've already bookmarked that, but this will make it a lot easier to get to. It's kind of hard to navigate to your Azure DevOps organization. So here, we're going to create a new project. We're going to call this We're just going to name that for the level plant. You can call it whatever you want. Just going to leave that blank. We're going to have visibility set to private, and we're just going to create there. So what we're doing with Azure DevOps is Azure DevOps does a couple different things. As you see in the left-hand pane, when you create this project, underneath your organization, basically you're organizing by projects. So when you go to a project, this is where you will be able to see, you have dashboards, you have a wiki, all built in where you can just say, hey, this is what this project does. This is what it's about. We have boards. This is the project management side of this, which is if your work items, you have boards where you can plan things out, sprint cycles, you have backlogs for, tech debt, you have sprint cycles, you can plan sprint cycles. This stuff, we're not going to look into this, but you will see some of this stuff possibly in a future job. We have repos here, and this is where we're going to be mostly finding ourselves, is repos and pipelines. Repos is where you will have your code. So up in the top here, you'll see that we already have a repo called for the level plants here. I don't like all the spaces in there, so this is just auto-generated when you create a new project. And you can see, you can go through the commits, pushes, branches, tags, pull requests. We'll go over some of this stuff at a future date. Pipelines. So this is where we will be getting into building and deploying your application. So for now, we will mostly focus on the repos for now. And then we have test plans. You can set up, this is for testing and things like that, like regression testing and other things like that. We won't get too much into that on this course, but artifacts, this is where, let's say you have like an internal NuGet feed, or maybe you need to save one of your builds into something that you can grab later. This is what artifacts is used for. But for now, repos, pipelines. Okay. So this has been created, this project, and let's go back to our Blazor Web App. And right now, you can see it auto-created two. So here's the solution. Inside the solution, there are two projects. One is FLP and the other is FLP.client. FLP is the server. This is kind of the backend where most of the processing is going to be handled. And the FLP.client is where the user will be messing around in. So anything the user's clicking on, navigating through is going to be handled by the client. And then when a request is sent or things are sent back, it will be processed by the server and then back to the client. So we are going to actually add two projects as well to this solution. So this is where we want to really structure this web app. So right now we have the server and the client here. And what we're going to want is we're going to want a project, a new project that is a class library that is going to be called flp.data. And flp.data is going to be where we store our database stuff. So like anything that is related to entities in the database, your data connection and things like that, that is going to be stored in here. So that is only going to be accessed by the server. We don't want anything that from the client to be able to directly access flp.data. And that's because anything on the client is going to be inherently unsecure, because people can do a lot of bad things that you don't intend them to do. So we want to make sure that the server is the only one that's going to be really messing with data, because that's the one we know for sure that whatever's hosting it is going to be as far away from the client as possible. So we're going to do some things to structure that. And one of those is to make this project here. However, we do need to make sure that the server can talk to the client and send data and objects like that from the server to the client, or the client to the server. So we are going to add a new project. It's going to be another class library, and we're going to call this flp.shared. And this will be shared between FLP and the flp.client. And this is where we'll have our DTOs, which are called data transfer objects. And this is where we will basically wrap data to be shared with the client so that it's not including any kind of sensitive information. So data is going to be handling sensitive information that's going to go into our database and back out of our database. And flp.shared is going to basically help us create models that are user-friendly, in the sense that we're not sharing any privileged information with end users. So this is going to be our basic project structure. So now we are going to do one more thing before we really test this right now. So at the top, we just added those projects. Let's run this. And the way you run this right now is HTTPS. You're just going to click this play, and we're going to see this be built down in the output. And it should pop up being hosted by our local host. So it's going to use IIS Express SSL certificate. So we're going to trust that. Yes. So it's just saying, hey, your local host certificate is going to be trusted on your local machine. And this is because we're setting up a local environment. This is what we are testing. It's just, hey, everything is kind of wrapped within our local. Nothing can really talk to this or talk out of this. This is just us testing right now. And as you can see, it works. It's popping up a hello world. And I can show you actually in the Solution Explorer, if you want to know why it's sharing that. If we go into the server, so on the server side, it's showing us this home page, which is a home.razor. In the next episode, we'll get more into the meat of what this all Blazor specific stuff is. But this is the page that it's hosting. So sweet, it's working. So we're going to add one more thing here. So we're going to go to our FLP, the server, and we're going to right click. We're going to add Docker support. And we're going to leave this, we're going to run under Linux for a couple of reasons that we'll go into later. But just leave these all default and hit OK. And what that's going to do is it's going to generate us a template for Docker to basically build our application. So basically what the Docker file does is it says, this is everything you need to do to run this application. And let's just run through this line by line. So we got the from here. So this is from a image, ASP.NET 8.0. And what it's saying is, hey, I have a working directory, so I'm going to package up this stuff, basically. So I'm going to create a working directory called /app. I'm going to expose these ports. So this is where traffic's going to be routed to the application. This next step is basically where the actual SDK, so SDK is where the application will be restored. It will be running these .NET restores, .NET publish. So what it's doing here is it's going to take in this build configuration, which can be found up here. Currently we're in debug, release, and this is just the build config that you're going to choose to build your app underneath. So we have the working directory set as /src. So here, these copy statements are saying, hey, I'm going to copy over these .cs projes, which are just your references, everything you want to include with your specific project folders here. You'll see that certain things are being included, like your NuGet packages here. So that is going to be handled through your .cs proj, so you need to copy those over, copy over the server, the client, and you're going to do a .NET restore. So it's going to restore all those NuGet packages. Then after, you're going to copy everything over, and you're going to have that working directory where it's going to now, after everything's been copied over, you're going to build. And that's just going to say, hey, I can compile this stuff. It's going to build successfully. And now we're going to publish. So that's from build, which is up here. This is a new stage where it's going to say, hey, I'm going to publish. And we're going to have that same build configuration. We're going to have .NET publish. And in this case, we're going to find this project and we're going to say, hey, I want to output this to /app/publish. And now in the final stage, this is where we're going to tell the container, what are we running? How are we going to run this? So from base up here, as final, we're going to find that working directory of /app. So we're going to start here and we're going to copy over from /app/publish to here. So from this, where we did our .NET publish, we are going to now copy that over to the /app. And our entry point is now going to be a call for .NET to run flp.dll. And that is our Docker file. I will include some documentation in this video to kind of go over that more. But just know that this is a template. It's working. It's defaulted to just scaffold it that way and just work. So now you may notice that at the top, we now have container. Now we can run it as a Docker file here. So we're going to run that. And basically what that's doing is it's telling Visual Studio, now look at the Docker file, and I want you to run it. And because we have Docker Desktop running, this is a good time to check to make sure you do have Docker Desktop running. It's going to use Docker Desktop to basically run that image underneath. So you'll see a new window pop up that shows containers here. And what happens now is it will take a little bit of loading. It's a different port, but it's still directing to that port 8080 and 8081. And we still have that hello world, which tells us that it's working. So that was pretty complicated for just a quick local environment test, but this should all just work. So just follow the template, just follow the default directions, and we'll get into it a little bit more at a later date. So finally, we now have to check this into source control. And the way we do that is we want to have get changes here. So we want to navigate here to get changes. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a Git repository. If you don't have this here, you can go up to View and find that here. And that should pull this pane open. So we're going to create a Git repository. And it'll pop up with this window here. We're going to actually use Azure DevOps. And because we created that project earlier, we're doing great. So we are going to go under create a new DevOps repository. We're going to find that project and we're going to just name it FLP. And all we're going to do is create and push. So what it's doing now is just taking everything that we just did and we're packaging it up and we're adding the initial project files. And then we're going to just hit push. So a good rule of thumb before you push as well is just to test that it runs so that you're not breaking your build when it's in source control. So when it is in source control, it's nice to know that it is working, and we'll structure that out later at a later date. So we're going to sign in real quick. Okay, so when you do that commit, it will commit it locally. And what I did was push it. So you have a locally stored, if you go down here, you have a local store of this branch and then a remote store of that branch. And what you have to do is just make sure that when you push, it's going to push it to the remote. So that's why I did that. So if you go and look now, pretty sure we just signed it. Now if we go look here, and we go look for another repository up here because we call it FLP. When we click on this one, we're going to see all our stuff here that we just did. So now whenever you make a change, you'll see that in the commits. So you see there's 2 that were done. Here's your git ignore. It's just default. This is just the default when you create a new one, a new Git repository through Visual Studio. And then if you look here, we have just everything we just did. So now, if you choose to do something, you can now roll back commits. You can say, hey, I want to revert, some of these commits or something like that. But right now, we don't really have anything to revert or need to. I think that will do it for this video. So we'll have to figure out this Git, even though it has you sign in a couple times. But yeah, we'll continue on in the next video and we'll go over some more of the details of this project setup. So I will see you then.